She laughed without thinking, tossing words into the air like they meant nothing. Rich men don't know how to please a woman. The joke died the instant he stood up, tall, composed, dangerously close. His voice was low, steady, taunting. "Are you sure about that?" Their eyes met, the air shifted, and in that single breath Zara realized she'd just challenged the one man capable of making her question everything she thought she knew about love, desire, and herself. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and become a member to get early access to upcoming stories. And if you felt it was really worth listening to, click the super thanks button too. Your support makes all the difference and helps us keep bringing stories that move you. The afternoon sun filtered through the cafe windows in golden ribbons, catching dust particles that danced lazily in the warm air. The aroma of freshly ground coffee beans mingled with cinnamon and vanilla, wrapping the small space in a comforting embrace. Zara wiped down the espresso machine for the third time that hour, her mind wandering as it usually did during the slow periods between the morning rush and the evening clientele. She'd been working at Brew & Soul for 2 years, long enough to know every regular customer's order by heart, long enough to memorize the way the floorboards creaked near the back corner, long enough to dream of something more. The cafe sat on a quiet street in the arts district, surrounded by galleries she longed to exhibit in, and boutiques she couldn't afford to browse. It was a world she watched through glass, always just out of reach. "Hello, Earth to Zara." Mia's voice cut through her daydreaming. Her co-worker leaned against the counter, dark curls escaping from beneath her visor, eyes sparkling with mischief. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" Zara asked, though she already knew. That dreamy, far-off look, like you're planning your escape from our humble coffee kingdom. Mia grabbed a cloth and started wiping down the display case, her movements quick and efficient. "Let me guess, thinking about that art show downtown?" Before Zara could respond, their friend Sophie pushed through the door, the little bell chiming cheerfully. She worked at the bookstore next door and often stopped by during her breaks. "Please tell me you have something stronger than coffee," she groaned, collapsing dramatically into a chair by the window. "I just spent 20 minutes explaining to a customer that we can't order a book that doesn't exist." Zara laughed, the sound clear and unguarded. She loved these moments. The easy camaraderie, the simple pleasure of friendship, uncomplicated by pretension or expectation. She poured Sophie an iced coffee, extra shot, no questions asked. "So," Sophie said, accepting the drink with grateful hands, "I saw the most ridiculous thing on my way over here. This guy, probably some uptight executive, was on the phone yelling at someone about quarterly projections, while his dog was literally wrapped around a parking meter. Let me guess." Mia jumped in. "He didn't even notice?" "Not until the dog started barking. Then he looked annoyed, like the dog was interrupting his very important conversation." Sophie rolled her eyes. "Why are rich men always like that? So oblivious to everything around them?" Zara leaned against the counter, a playful smile tugging at her lips. The conversation was familiar territory. They'd dissected the quirks of wealthy customers before, the ones who ordered complicated drinks with an air of superiority, who barely looked up from their phones when speaking to her. "You know what I think?" Zara said, her voice carrying through the nearly empty cafe. She was feeling bold, energized by the laughter and the afternoon warmth. "Rich men don't know how to please a woman." The words hung in the air for a beat before Mia burst out laughing. "Oh my God, where did that come from?" "I'm serious," Zara continued, warming to the theme. "They're so focused on their portfolios and their power lunches that they forget how to actually connect with another human being. It's all surface, no substance. They think money replaces effort, that expensive gifts take the place of genuine attention." Sophie nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, like that guy I dated last year. Remember him? He took me to the fanciest restaurant in the city, but spent the entire dinner checking his email. I could have been a potted plant for all the conversation we had." The laughter was contagious now, filling the cafe with bright, careless joy. Zara felt lighter than she had in weeks, unburdened by the weight of unpaid student loans and deferred dreams. In this moment, surrounded by friends, everything felt possible, or at least bearable. Then the laughter died. A movement caught Zara's peripheral vision, a shift in the shadows near the back corner, where a large ficus plant partially obscured a small table. She'd assumed the space was empty, as it usually was at this time. But now, as her eyes adjusted, she saw him. A man stood slowly, unfolding from the chair with a grace that spoke of confidence and control. He was tall, she noticed that first, with dark hair slightly tousled, as if he'd run his hands through it one too many times. He wore a simple white button-down shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, and dark jeans that looked deceptively casual, but probably cost more than her monthly rent. There was an elegance to him that had nothing to do with what he wore and everything to do with how he carried himself. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. Dark, intense, fixed directly on her, with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not exactly anger. Something more complex, something that made her skin tingle with awareness. He moved toward the counter with measured steps, and Zara felt every inch of the distance closing between them. The cafe suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. Mia had gone silent beside her. Sophie's cup paused halfway to her lips. When he reached the counter, he didn't speak immediately. Instead, he held Zara's gaze, letting the silence stretch until it became almost unbearable. She could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the shadow of stubble along his jaw, the way his lips curved. Not quite a smile, but close. "Are you sure about that?" His voice was low, smooth as aged whiskey, with an edge that sent a shiver down her spine. Zara's mouth went dry. She tried to form words, but her brain had apparently short-circuited. Up close, he was even more striking. Not conventionally handsome in a polished, magazine-perfect way, but compelling in a way that made it impossible to look away. She started, then stopped. What could she say? That she was joking, that she didn't know he was there. The excuses felt hollow even before she voiced them. His eyes never left hers as he reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. The movement was unhurried, deliberate. He extracted several bills and placed them on the counter, his fingers brushing hers when she reflexively reached out to accept them. The touch was brief, electric, a spark of contact that seemed to resonate through her entire body. "Keep the change," he said, his voice still carrying that underlying current of something she couldn't name. Challenge? Amusement? Interest? Then he leaned in, just slightly, closing the space between them until she could catch his scent, something clean and woody with a hint of bergamot. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said, each word measured and deliberate. "Same time. Maybe then you can tell me to my face what you really think." He pulled back, and Zara felt like she could breathe again, though she wasn't sure she wanted to. The smile he gave her was slow, knowing, and entirely too confident. It was the smile of a man who'd just accepted a challenge and knew exactly how he planned to win it. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the door. Zara watched, transfixed, as he moved through the golden afternoon light. The bell chimed as he left, and only then did the spell break. "Holy," Mia breathed beside her. Sophie set down her cup with trembling hands. Did that really just happen? Zara looked at the bills on the counter, a 50 real tip for a coffee that cost 4. But it wasn't the money that made her hands shake as she placed it in the register. It was the way he'd looked at her, as if he'd seen past every defense, every wall she'd built, straight through to something she wasn't sure she was ready to expose. She glanced at the clock. 24 hours until he returned. 24 hours to figure out what she was going to say. 24 hours to convince herself that the way her pulse still raced meant absolutely nothing. But even as she tried, she knew it was a lie. Something had shifted in those few charged moments. Something she couldn't undo, couldn't pretend hadn't happened. And the worst part? She wasn't sure she wanted to. Zara woke before her alarm went off. The grey light of dawn filtered through the thin curtains of her apartment, painting the walls in soft shades of silver. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand why her heart was already racing before her feet even touched the floor. Then she remembered. Him. She'd spent the entire night tossing and turning, alternating between reliving every second of that encounter and convincing herself she was overreacting. He was just a customer. An arrogant, presumptuous customer who probably wouldn't even show up today. Why would he? He'd made his little scene, proven his point, and now he'd move on with his busy, wealthy life. But as she got up and walked to the bathroom, Zara couldn't ignore the chill in her stomach. Half anxiety, half something she refused to name as anticipation. The apartment was small, a studio she shared with stacks of art books, unfinished canvases leaning against the walls, and second-hand furniture that had more charm than function. The kitchen window overlooked a narrow alley where stray cats occasionally fought at 3 in the morning. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. She turned on the shower, waiting for the water to heat up. The pipes groaned, a familiar sound that normally annoyed her, but today she barely registered it. Her mind was elsewhere, replaying that low voice. "I'll see you tomorrow." It wasn't a request. It was a statement. As the hot water cascaded over her shoulders, Zara closed her eyes and tried to center herself. She wasn't the type to get rattled by a handsome stranger. She'd built an independent life, paid her own bills, pursued her own dreams. She didn't need male validation or romantic drama complicating things. But then why was she choosing her outfit so carefully? She stood in front of her open closet for too long, holding a light summer dress against her body, then discarding it for a simple blouse and jeans. Too casual. She wanted to look like she wasn't trying. Because she wasn't. Definitely wasn't. 20 minutes later, she'd changed 3 times and finally settled on a white cotton blouse with slightly puffed sleeves and dark jeans that made her feel confident. Simple, but put together. Professional, but feminine. She applied lipstick, a natural pink shade that barely looked like makeup, and immediately felt ridiculous. She wiped it off with the back of her hand, then reapplied it, lighter this time. Her eyes in the mirror looked larger than usual, pupils dilated with a mix of nervousness and defiance. "You're being an idiot," she told her reflection. Her reflection didn't look convinced. The walk to the cafe was faster than usual. Zara found herself taking long strides, as if hurrying could somehow speed up time until the inevitable moment. The morning air was cool and charged with the promise of heat later. Birds sang in the trees lining the street, and the world seemed strangely vivid, the colors brighter, the sounds sharper. She arrived at Brew & Soul 45 minutes before her shift started. Mia was already there, preparing the first batch of coffee. The rich aroma filled Zara's nostrils the moment she walked in, a familiar combination of earthy and bitter notes that normally calmed her. Today, it only intensified her already frayed nerves. "You're early," Mia observed without looking up from the machine. "Like scarily early." "Couldn't sleep well," Zara replied, hanging her bag on the hook in the back. "I wonder why." Mia finally looked at her, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. "Wouldn't have anything to do with a certain mysterious customer who left you all flustered yesterday, would it?" "I wasn't flustered." "Zara, you turned the color of a ripe tomato." It was adorable and embarrassing at the same time. Mia leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. "So are you going to pretend you're not waiting for him to show up?" "He's not going to show up," Zara said too quickly. "It was just a male ego thing. He's probably already forgotten." "Keep telling yourself that, honey." The morning hours dragged by with agonizing slowness. Zara served customers on autopilot, making lattes and cappuccinos while her gaze drifted to the door every time the bell rang. Each time it was someone different. A college student with giant headphones, a mother with a small child clinging to her leg, a delivery person picking up a tray of coffees for a meeting. But not him. By 11:30, Zara started to relax. Of course, he wouldn't come. Men like that didn't come back. They didn't need to. There were thousands of cafes in the city, thousands of girls who probably wouldn't accidentally insult them. It was exactly at that moment that the door opened, and there he was. Only this time, he wasn't alone. A woman walked beside him, tall, slender, with perfectly straight blonde hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. She wore a cream dress that probably cost more than Zara's rent for 3 months, and carried a designer bag that Zara recognized from fashion magazines. Her heels clicked against the floor with rhythmic confidence. Zara's stomach dropped. Of course. Of course he had a girlfriend, probably a fiancée, maybe even a wife. And she, idiot that she was, had spent the entire morning getting dressed up like a teenager before prom. He approached the counter, the blonde woman beside him talking about something related to an art gallery downtown. Her voice was smooth, cultivated, the kind of voice that came from expensive private schools and summers in Europe. Zara forced a professional smile. "Good morning. What can I get you?" His eyes met hers, and for a second, everything else disappeared. There was something in that look, recognition, satisfaction, maybe even relief, as if he too had been waiting for this moment. "2 espressos?" he said, his voice carrying that same low, velvety quality that had haunted her thoughts. "And a croissant." "Just one?" Zara asked, trying to sound casual as she prepared the orders. "Claire never eats carbs," he replied with a touch of humor in his voice. The blonde woman, Claire, laughed. "Simon exaggerates. I eat carbs. I just prefer not to have them before an important meeting." Simon. So he had a name. Zara repeated it mentally, trying not to like how it sounded. She made the coffees with hands that weren't as steady as she'd like. When she placed the cups on the counter, Simon reached out to pay. His fingers brushed hers again, this time more deliberately, lingering longer. The touch sent an electric current up her arm. He held her gaze. "Changed your mind?" "About what?" Zara asked, though she knew perfectly well. "About your theory." His voice lowered, creating a bubble of intimacy despite Claire's presence beside him. "About rich men." Claire looked between them, an expression of amused curiosity on her face. "Okay, am I missing something here?" "Inside joke," Simon said, without taking his eyes off Zara. Her heart was beating so loudly she was sure everyone in the cafe could hear it. She should back down, should do the polite professional thing. Instead, she lifted her chin. "I haven't changed my mind, no." His smile was slow, satisfied. "Good." He picked up the coffees and turned to go, but then stopped, glancing back over his shoulder. When he spoke, his voice was low enough that only she could hear. "She's my sister." The words hung in the air for a moment before Zara fully processed them. Sister. Not girlfriend, not fiancée. Sister. Before she could respond, he leaned closer, his proximity making every nerve in her body come alive. His scent, that mix of wood and bergamot, wrapped around her senses. She could see the tiny gold flecks in his dark eyes, the texture of stubble along his jaw. "Dinner," he said, each word deliberate. "Tomorrow. Let me show you you're wrong about men like me." It wasn't really a question, but there was an opening there. A choice. She could say no. Could keep her life simple, uncomplicated, safe. But as she looked into those eyes, seeing not just confidence, but something deeper, something vulnerable hidden beneath the surface, Zara found herself nodding. Okay. The smile he gave her was different from the others, more genuine, less guarded. "I'll pick you up at 8. Give me your address." She wrote it on a napkin with trembling hands, aware of Mia watching everything with wide eyes from where she was pretending to organize cups. Simon took the napkin, his fingers brushing hers once more, a touch that now felt like a promise. "See you tomorrow, Zara." He knew her name. When had he found out? She didn't remember telling him. When the door closed behind him and Claire, the cafe seemed to return to normal life. The murmur of conversations resumed. The espresso machine hissed, but Zara remained frozen behind the counter, staring at the door, her heart still racing. "You have a date with him," Mia said, not a question. "I have a date with him," Zara repeated, the weight of the words finally settling in. "Zara, you know what you're getting into, right? That guy, he's not like the others." "I know." And she did. But she wasn't sure if that scared her or excited her. Maybe it was both. As she grabbed a cloth to wipe down the counter, Zara realized she was smiling. A small, secret smile, the kind that comes when you're about to do something potentially reckless, but can't help wanting to anyway. 24 hours until dinner. 24 hours to find out if she was completely wrong about rich men, or completely right about this one in particular. Zara spent the next day oscillating between excitement and absolute panic. She called Sophie twice, discarded 4 dress options, and almost cancelled everything 3 times before 6 in the evening. The apartment felt smaller somehow, the walls closing in as she tried to find something, anything, that would make her feel confident and beautiful without looking like she was trying too hard. "Wear the black dress," Sophie had instructed over the phone, her voice patient despite it being the third call of the day. "That simple one with the thin straps. You look gorgeous in it and it's elegant without being over the top. What if it's too dressy? What if he takes me somewhere casual and I look like an idiot?" "Zara, breathe. The guy clearly has money. He's not taking you to a fast food place." But it wasn't about the restaurant. It was about what came after. It was about the way her heart raced every time she thought about those dark eyes fixed on her. It was about feeling like she was about to jump off a cliff without knowing if there was water below or rocks. At 7:45, she was ready. The black dress fell softly over her body, simple but flattering, ending just above her knees. She wore medium-heeled sandals, high enough to elongate her legs, low enough not to trip. Her hair fell in natural waves over her shoulders, and she applied only the essentials of makeup: mascara, a touch of blush, nude lipstick. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself, not because of the clothes or makeup, but because of the expression on her face. There was a vulnerability there she normally kept hidden, an openness that scared her. The intercom buzzed exactly at 8. Zara grabbed her small purse, took a deep breath, and went downstairs. Her heart hammered against her ribs, each step echoing in the narrow hallway. When she pushed open the entrance door, the evening air wrapped around her, warm with a touch of breeze that carried the scent of jasmine from neighboring gardens. Simon was leaning against a dark, elegant car, understated but clearly expensive. He wore grey tailored pants and a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong, tanned forearms. When he saw her, he straightened, and for a moment he just stood there watching. The way his eyes traveled over her body was slow, deliberate, not crude, but appreciative in a way that made heat rise up her neck. When his gaze finally returned to her face, there was something dark and intense in that expression. "You're making this difficult for me," he said, his voice rough. Zara descended the last step, trying to ignore how unsteady her legs felt. "Making what difficult?" "Keeping this respectful." He moved closer, closing the distance between them in 2 long strides, so close now that she could feel the heat emanating from him, could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened slightly. "You look beautiful." "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice coming out softer than intended. He opened the passenger door for her, his hand resting briefly on the small of her back as she got in, a touch that burned through the thin fabric of her dress. The car's interior smelled of leather and that woody cologne that was already becoming dangerously familiar. When Simon got in on the driver's side, the space seemed to shrink. He didn't start the car immediately. Instead, he turned to her, his arm resting casually on the steering wheel. "Nervous?" he asked. "Should I be?" "No." His voice was firm, reassuring. "But I can tell you are. Your hands." Zara looked down and realized she was clutching her purse too tightly, her knuckles white. She forced herself to relax her grip. "I don't do this often," she admitted. "Dates? Dates with strangers I accidentally insulted." His laugh was low, rich. "Technically, you didn't insult me. You insulted an entire category of people I happen to belong to." He started the engine, the soft purr filling the silence. "And I loved it." "Loved it?" "Most people get intimidated. You just said what you thought. It was refreshing." They drove in comfortable silence through the lit streets. Zara watched the city pass by the window, lit storefronts, couples walking hand in hand, nightlife pulsing around them. But her awareness was constantly pulled to the man beside her, to the way his hands held the steering wheel with quiet confidence, to his strong profile illuminated by streetlights. "Where are we going?" she asked. "A special place. Do you trust me?" The question carried more weight than the words suggested. Zara looked at him, meeting those dark eyes fixed briefly on her before returning to the road. "I'm here, aren't I?" His smile was reward enough. The restaurant was different from what she expected. It wasn't a showy place with valets and formal uniforms. It was intimate, tucked away on a quiet side street, with soft lighting spilling from wide windows. Inside there were maybe 10 tables, all generously spaced, each with a flickering candle at the center. "This place isn't on the tourist lists," Simon explained, as a waiter led them to a corner table near a window overlooking a small interior garden. "The chef is a friend." The food is, well, you'll see. They sat down, and Zara was immediately aware of how their knees almost touched under the small table. She adjusted her dress skirt, trying to create some distance, but the space was limited. Simon noticed. Of course he noticed. The small smile that played on his lips said everything. "Wine?" he offered. "Please," he ordered in a low voice to the waiter. Then his attention returned completely to her. It was unsettling, that total attention. He didn't look at his phone, didn't get distracted by the surroundings. Just watched, listened. "So," he began, "tell me about you." "More than works at a cafe and has strong opinions about rich men." Zara laughed, some of the tension dissolving. "There's not much to tell. I've been working at Brew and Soul for 2 years. I study art. Or studied. I finished college last year, and now I'm kind of figuring out what comes next." "Art." He leaned slightly forward. "What kind?" "Painting, mainly. Oils. I like portraits, I guess. People. Emotions. Trying to capture what's beneath the surface." "How do you see me?" The question came out soft, curious. Zara studied him, the strong line of his jaw, the intensity in his eyes, but also the softness in his mouth, the way he leaned toward her as if each word mattered. "Complicated," she said finally. "Layers. Like there's more than you let most people see." Something passed across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. Perceptive. The wine arrived and they toasted. The liquid was smooth, rich, going down too easily. Zara took a sip, then another, feeling the warmth spread through her chest. "And you?" she asked. "What does a rich man do besides prove baristas wrong?" His smile was crooked. "I run a business. Investments mainly. Early-stage companies, technology, some properties. It's fine. Keeps me busy." "Just fine?" She tilted her head. "Sounds like you don't love it." "Love is a strong word for work. But shouldn't it be, if you spend most of your life doing it?" He was quiet for a moment, his fingers slowly turning his wine glass. "You sound like my sister. Claire is always telling me to find more passion, purpose beyond profits." And she's right. But it's not that simple when you've built something from the ground up. There are people depending on you, responsibilities. Under the table, his knee touched hers. For a second, Zara thought it was accidental. But then he didn't pull away. The touch remained, warm, deliberate, sending waves of awareness through her body. She should move away. It would be the polite thing to do. Instead, she stayed exactly where she was. "And outside of work?" she asked, her voice a bit rougher. "What does Simon do for fun?" "Honestly?" He held her gaze. "Lately I think about a certain barista who called me incompetent." "I didn't say incompetent." It was implied. The food arrived, dishes that looked like art, flavors that exploded on her tongue. They talked between bites, the conversation flowing easily now, alternating between lightness and depth. He told her about growing up with parents who traveled constantly, leaving him and Claire to be raised mostly by nannies. She talked about her small family, loving but financially unstable, and how that had shaped her fear of depending on anyone. As the night progressed, the space between them seemed to shrink. Their legs were fully pressed together now under the table, creating a constant line of heat. When she reached for her glass, his fingers brushed hers. When he leaned in to make a point, his breath grazed her cheek. It was torture, delicious, excruciating torture. "You were right, you know," Simon said suddenly, his voice low. "About what?" "Men like me. A lot of us forget how to really see someone, how to pay attention. I was becoming like that." His eyes sought hers. "And then you said that, and I woke up." Zara's heart beat hard against her ribs. "Simon." He reached across the table, his fingers finding hers, intertwining. The touch was firm, warm, anchoring. "If I were trying to seduce you, Zara," he said, his voice low enough to create a bubble of intimacy despite the other diners around them, "you'd know it." She swallowed hard, the air suddenly too thick. "And how would I know?" His eyes darkened, the intensity there stealing her breath. "Because we wouldn't be here anymore." The silence that followed was charged, pulsing with everything unsaid. Zara was aware of every point of contact between them. Hands intertwined on the table, legs pressed together underneath, gazes locked across the flickering candles. Finally, Simon signaled for the check. When they stood to leave, his hand found the small of her back again. That touch both possessive and comforting at once. In the car, the tension was even more palpable. Simon drove with one hand, the other resting near the gear shift, so close to her thigh that Zara could feel the heat. "I don't want this night to end," he said suddenly. "It doesn't have to." The words came out before she could think them through completely. He looked at her, and what he saw in her face made him pull over, not in front of her apartment, but at a lookout point overlooking the lit city. When he turned off the engine, silence enveloped them. Simon turned in his seat, facing her completely. "Zara, She didn't let him finish. She didn't know where the courage came from, but suddenly she was leaning across the console, her hands finding the sides of his face, guiding his lips to hers. The kiss was everything, soft and urgent, exploratory and hungry. His hands slid through her hair, pulling her closer, despite the awkward space. She tasted wine on his lips, felt the texture of stubble against her palms, lost herself completely in the sensation. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless, foreheads resting together. "This," she whispered, "this isn't just chemistry." "I know," he replied, his voice rough. "I know." And as they remained there under the stars, the city glowing below, Zara realized she'd crossed a line from which there was no going back, and she didn't want to go back. 3 days had passed since that kiss. 3 days in which Zara floated through work in a state of semi-consciousness, smiling to herself at random moments, reliving every second of that night. Simon had texted. Nothing excessive, just enough to keep her thinking about him. "Good morning. How was your day? Thinking of you." Simple words that carried weight. When he asked if she'd be free Saturday afternoon, Zara didn't even hesitate. "Yes," she typed back, her heart already racing with anticipation. This time he said to wear something comfortable, no heels, no elegant dresses, just herself. Zara opted for light jeans, a white linen blouse and white sneakers. She pulled her hair into a loose ponytail, a few rebellious strands framing her face. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she saw something different. Not necessarily better or worse, just lighter, as if some weight she'd been carrying for years had lessened slightly. Simon arrived right on time, driving the same elegant car. But this time, when she got in, he didn't wait. His hand found her face immediately, pulling her into a kiss that left her dizzy. "Hi," he murmured against her lips. "Hi," she replied, smiling. "I missed you. 3 days." Only 3 days had passed, but Zara understood what he meant. She'd felt it too, that strange absence of someone she barely knew, but who had somehow already carved out space in her life. "Where are we going?" she asked when they finally pulled apart. "A special place, my secret refuge." He put the car in motion, his free hand finding hers, intertwining their fingers. "I don't show it to many people." There was something vulnerable in those words, an openness that made Zara's chest tighten. She squeezed his hand in response. They drove out of the city, leaving behind the busy streets and constant noise. The landscape gradually changed, buildings giving way to trees, concrete to green. The air coming through the open windows was fresher here, carrying the scent of earth and vegetation. "I grew up in the city," Simon said, breaking the comfortable silence. "But I always hated it. The constant pressure, the noise, the way everything is about being seen, about appearances. When I was 16, I found this place while driving aimlessly on a particularly rough day, and I've come back ever since, whenever I need to. Breathe." They turned onto a narrow dirt road that snaked up the mountain. Zara held onto the handle above the door as the car climbed, her stomach doing that little nervous dance that came with heights and anticipation. Finally, Simon parked in a flat space surrounded by trees. When they got out, the silence was profound. Just the whisper of leaves in the wind and the distant song of birds. "Come on," he said, extending his hand. They walked along a narrow trail, branches occasionally brushing their arms, the ground soft underfoot. Simon kept her hand firm, guiding her with the certainty of someone who'd walked this path countless times. And then suddenly, The trail opened up. Zara stopped, her breath catching in her throat. Before them was a rocky lookout point, and beyond it, the city spread out like a carpet of lights even in daylight. She could see everything, the downtown skyscrapers, the river winding through the urban landscape, the distant mountains forming a hazy horizon. It was breathtaking in its vastness, and yet up here everything felt distant, manageable. "Simon," she whispered, "this is incredible." He watched her instead of the view, a small smile playing on his lips. "I knew you'd understand." There was a flat rock outcropping near the edge, and they sat down, legs dangling over the precipice. The height should have scared Zara, but strangely she felt safe. Maybe because Simon was beside her, solid and present. For a long moment, they just sat in silence, taking in the view. The sun was beginning its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. "My parents were never around," Simon said suddenly, his voice low. "Dad always traveling for business. Mom always going with him because she hated being alone. Claire and I, we were like accessories, trophies to show off at dinners when they were in town, but inconveniences the rest of the time." Zara turned to look at him. His profile was tense, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the city below. "I learned early that love was conditional," he continued, "based on performance, on not causing trouble, on being the perfect son they could show off. I got excellent grades, got into the best university, built a successful business, and yet it never felt like enough. It never felt real." Zara's heart ached for him, for the boy he'd been, seeking approval that would never come. She placed her hand over his, intertwining their fingers. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Don't be." He finally looked at her, and there was an intensity in those dark eyes that made her shiver. "It made me who I am. It taught me that I can only count on myself. That control and distance are safety. And now, he paused, his jaw working as if the next words were difficult to form. "Now I'm here with you, wanting the opposite of all that. Wanting to let someone in, even though it's terrifying." Zara felt tears prick her eyes. There was courage in that admission, a vulnerability she hadn't expected. "I understand," she said. "Sort of. My family always struggled with money. We weren't poor, but tight, you know. My dad worked 2 jobs, my mom cleaned houses. I grew up wearing thrift store clothes and hearing them fight about bills late at night when they thought I was asleep." She took a deep breath, surprised at how easily the words flowed. "I learned that security meant not depending on anyone, that I needed to do everything myself because asking for help was weakness. I paid for my own college. I work at the cafe. I live in a tiny apartment because it's what I can afford. And I'm proud of that. But it's also lonely sometimes." "Zara," his voice was hoarse. "And then you showed up," she continued, looking at him now. "And you represent everything that's always scared me. Wealth, privilege, a world I never thought I belonged to. But when I'm with you, I don't think about that. I just think about how you make me feel seen, real." Simon turned completely toward her, his hands framing her face with a tenderness that contrasted with the intensity in his eyes. "You belong here," he said, each word loaded with conviction. "With me, not because of where I come from or what I have, but because when I'm with you I can breathe. I can be just me. Not the CEO, not the perfect son, not the facade I've built. Just Simon." A tear escaped from the corner of Zara's eye, and he wiped it away with his thumb, the touch gentle, reverent. "I'm scared," she admitted in a whisper. "Me too." He leaned closer, forehead touching hers. "But maybe we can be scared together." When their lips met, it was different from the first kiss, slower, deeper, loaded with everything they'd just shared. His hands slid through her hair, releasing the elastic, until the strands fell free around her shoulders. She held his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw, the curve of his ear. The sun was sinking lower now, bathing everything in golden light. When they pulled apart, both were breathless, soft smiles playing on their lips. "Stay with me tonight," Simon said. Not like that, not yet, just stay. Let's watch the sunset, talk or not talk, whatever you want." "Okay," Zara agreed, snuggling against him. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her closer until she rested against his chest. She could hear the steady beat of his heart, feel the rise and fall of his breathing. They stayed like that as the sky changed from gold to pink, from pink to purple, from purple to the deep blue of night. The first stars began to appear, points of light against the growing darkness. "Thank you," Zara whispered. "For what?" "For bringing me here, for sharing this with me." Simon kissed the top of her head, and she felt his smile against her hair. "Thank you for listening, for not running when I shared the ugly parts." "The ugly parts make you real," she said, "and I'll take real over perfect any day." As the darkness deepened, the city below transformed into a sea of twinkling lights. But up here in Simon's secret refuge, the world seemed to have shrunk to just the two of them. Two wounded hearts learning that maybe, just maybe, being together could heal them. When they finally descended the trail back to the car, hands intertwined, something had fundamentally shifted between them. The walls had started to fall, the masks had been removed. And though there were still fears, still uncertainties, now there was also hope. "I don't want this night to end," Zara said when they reached the car. Simon turned to her, framing her face once more. "Then it doesn't have to, not yet." And with another kiss under the stars, with promises whispered against warm skin, they chose to stay in that moment a little longer. Because sometimes the best moments are the ones we refuse to let go. The following week was a delicate dance between work, constant texting, and stolen meetings whenever possible. Simon would show up at the cafe sometimes, not always at the same time, keeping Zara in a constant state of anticipation. Each visit was brief but intense, a prolonged look, fingers touching as money changed hands, whispered words that made her heart race. "Saturday," he'd said during one of those visits, leaning over the counter in a way that blocked out the rest of the world. "I have a surprise for you." "What kind of surprise?" His smile was mysterious. "If I tell you, it won't be a surprise." Now it was Saturday morning, and Zara was in her apartment trying to decide what to wear for an unknown surprise. Simon had sent only one message. "Wear something that can get wet. I'll pick you up at noon." Get wet? Her brain immediately went to possibilities. Beach, pool, boat. She opted for a simple one-piece swimsuit in navy blue under a light white summer dress with small yellow flowers. She tossed sunscreen, a towel and sunglasses into a bag and waited with a mix of nervousness and excitement. When Simon rang the bell, she practically flew down the stairs. He was leaning against the car, wearing navy cargo shorts and a white t-shirt that hugged his chest in a way that should be illegal. Dark sunglasses hid his eyes, but the wide smile revealed everything. "Ready for an adventure?" he asked. "Depends on the adventure." "Do you trust me?" That question again. And like before, Zara found the answer was simple. Yes. The drive took them out of the city toward the coast. Zara kept her window open, letting the wind mess up her hair, the salty smell of the ocean getting stronger as they approached. Simon's hand rested on her thigh, his thumb tracing lazy circles that made her skin tingle, even through the thin fabric of her dress. "We're going on a boat ride," he finally revealed. "Nothing too crazy. Just the two of us, the ocean, and a few hours away from everything." Zara's heart jumped. "You have a boat?" "I have a few toys," he admitted with a shrug. "The boat is probably my favorite. It's where I go when I need to think." Another secret refuge. Another piece of him being shared with her. The marina was full of vessels of all sizes, luxurious yachts, elegant sailboats, small fishing boats. Simon guided her down a wooden pier that creaked softly under their feet until they stopped in front of a medium-sized boat. It wasn't the biggest there, but it was beautifully maintained, all white and blue, with sleek lines that suggested speed. "She's beautiful," Zara said, admiring it. "She's my piece," Simon replied, already climbing aboard and extending his hand to help her. "Come on." The deck was spacious with padded cushions at the stern and a small command area where Simon immediately took control. He moved with experienced confidence, checking equipment, starting the engine. There was something deeply attractive about seeing him like this, in his element, completely at ease, muscles flexing under his shirt as he worked. "Have you done this before?" Zara asked. "I spent every teenage summer learning to sail," he said, turning to her with a smile. It was the only thing my dad and I did together that really mattered. He may have been distant, but on the boat, we were just two guys in the ocean. There was melancholy in those words, but also peace. Zara stepped closer, placing her hand on his arm. Thank you for bringing me here. He covered her hand with his. There's no one else I'd rather be with. Soon they were moving, the boat gliding smoothly out of the marina toward open water. Zara sat at the stern, watching the shore gradually shrink, the world falling behind. The sea breeze tousled her hair, occasional spray of salt water touching her skin. It was liberating. No walls, no boundaries, just sky and water stretching infinitely. Simon guided the boat with steady hands, eyes fixed on the horizon, but she could feel his awareness of her. The way he occasionally glanced over his shoulder, checking, watching. The way his lips curved into a small smile whenever their eyes met. When they were far enough from shore, he slowed until they stopped, the boat rocking gently on the waves. The engine cutting off left only the sound of water lapping the hull and distant seagulls. Perfect, Simon murmured, more to himself than to her. He left the command area and came to sit beside her, so close their thighs touched. The warmth of his body contrasted with the cool ocean breeze, creating a sensation that made every nerve in Zara come alive. It's peaceful here, she said softly. You're peaceful, he replied, turning to face her. The sunglasses were finally removed, revealing those dark eyes that always seemed to see straight through her. Since I met you, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years. Zara felt her chest tighten. Simon, no. He placed a finger gently over her lips. Let me talk. I've spent so much time building walls, keeping people at a distance, convinced it was safer that way. And then you made that stupid joke about rich men, and something in me just broke, or maybe fixed itself. I don't know. He lowered his hand, but didn't pull away. Instead, he moved closer, if that was even possible. What I do know is that when I'm with you, I don't want walls. I don't want distance. I want everything. And that scares me. It scares me too, Zara admitted, her voice barely a whisper. But you're here. I'm here. The moment stretched between them, loaded with everything said and unsaid. The air felt thicker, each breath more conscious. Zara could see the gold flecks in his eyes, the way his pupils dilated, how his breathing became slightly faster. You know you're killing me, right? Simon said, his voice rough. A tremor ran through her. How so? Sitting here so close to you, wanting to touch you but trying to be respectful, wanting to kiss you until you forget your own name, but knowing we need to take it slow. His hand found her face, his thumb tracing her lower lip. You drive me crazy, Zara, in all the best ways. Her heart was beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. Then stop holding back. Something broke in his eyes. Control, maybe, or the last resistance. Are you sure? Kiss me, Simon. He didn't need more encouragement. His hands framed her face, pulling her into a kiss that stole all the air from her lungs. It wasn't gentle or exploratory like the previous ones. It was hunger, weeks of built-up tension finally releasing. Zara melted into him, her hands moving up his chest, feeling the firm muscles under the thin cotton of his shirt. Her fingers found his hair, pulling lightly, and the low groan he released against her lips sent heat straight to her core. His hands left her face, sliding down her throat, over her shoulders, down her arms until they found her waist. He pulled her closer, until she was practically in his lap, her body pressed against his at every possible point. God, Zara, he murmured against her mouth, his lips moving to her jaw, down her throat. You have no idea what you do to me. She tilted her head back, giving him access, lost in the sensation of his mouth on her skin, the scrape of his stubble, the warmth of his breath. Her hands wandered across his back, exploring the contours of muscles, the curve of his spine. When his lips returned to hers, the kiss was deeper, more desperate. Their tongues met, dancing in a rhythm that felt both new and familiar. The boat rocked gently beneath them, the world reduced to just this sensation, this moment, this man who made every cell in her body come alive. Finally, needing air, they pulled apart. But only enough to breathe, foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling. This, Zara began, trying to find words through the fog of desire. "This isn't just chemistry." "No," Simon agreed, his hand still holding her waist as if afraid to let her go. "This is everything. Chemistry, connection, something I don't know how to name but don't want to lose." They stayed like that, wrapped up in each other, the sun warming their skin, the ocean breeze cooling where they were too hot. There was no rush now, just contentment in holding, in being, in finally letting the barriers fall completely. "We could stay here forever," Zara whispered. "We could," Simon agreed. "But then you'd get hungry, and I didn't bring enough food." She laughed, the tension breaking into something lighter but no less intimate. "Always practical. Someone has to be when you're making me lose my mind." They spent the rest of the afternoon like that, alternating between long, lazy kisses and conversations that jumped from deep to absurd. Simon prepared a snack of fruit and cheese he'd brought, feeding her strawberries while she pretended to protest. Zara took off her shoes and dipped her feet in the water, squealing at the cold, laughing when Simon pulled her back to the safety of his arms. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they lay side by side on the deck, fingers intertwined, watching clouds dance above. "I don't want to go back," Zara admitted softly. "Then we don't," Simon said, turning his head to look at her. "Not yet. We stay until the stars come out, until we can't avoid the real world anymore. And then we do this again, and again, as many times as you want. Because, Zara," he rolled onto his side, propping himself up on his elbow to look at her properly. "This thing that's happening between us, it's real. It's scary and exciting and probably insane, but it's real, and I'm not letting go." Tears pricked her eyes, not from sadness but from something much bigger. Hope, maybe, or just the overwhelming realization that she was no longer alone in this free fall. "Neither am I," she whispered. And when he kissed her again, soft and sweet under the burning sky, Zara knew with absolute certainty, whatever this was, wherever it led, she was in. Completely, irrevocably in. The following weeks were a revelation. Zara and Simon saw each other whenever possible. Quiet dinners at hidden restaurants, morning walks before work, phone conversations that stretched into the early hours. Each meeting deepened the connection. Each conversation revealed new layers. But they always ended with kisses at Zara's apartment door, with reluctant goodbyes and the weight of everything still unsaid, hanging in the air. Simon never pushed, never hinted. He just waited, patient, letting her set the pace. Until one Thursday night, during one of those endless phone calls, he asked a question that changed everything. "Have dinner with me on Friday," he said, his voice carrying something different. Not exactly nervousness, but a vulnerability she rarely heard. "At my place, I'll cook." Zara's heart jumped. "You cook? I have a few tricks up my sleeve." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Nothing fancy, but I promise I won't poison you." There was weight in that invitation. They both knew it. It wasn't just dinner. It was a step forward, crossing a threshold that once crossed would fundamentally change where they were. "Okay," Zara said softly. "What time?" 7? "I'll send you the address." When they hung up, Zara stared at the phone for a long moment, her heart racing. She knew what this invitation meant, knew what might happen. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel fear, just anticipation. On Friday, the day at the cafe dragged on endlessly. Mia noticed her distraction immediately. "You're on another planet today," she observed, wiping down the counter for the third time. "Let me guess, Simon?" The flush on Zara's cheeks gave everything away. "You're going to his place, aren't you?" Mia asked, her eyes shining with knowledge. "Like officially going to his place?" "It's just dinner," Zara protested weakly. "Sure it is," Mia laughed. "Look, I love you, so I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice. Relax. You two have been doing this dance for weeks. If it's going to happen, let it happen naturally. And please," she pointed a finger emphatically, "don't get in your own head." Easier said than done. When Zara finally got home at 5 in the afternoon, she immediately jumped in the shower. She stood under the hot spray for too long, trying to calm the nerves simmering under her skin. When she got out, the mirror was fogged, and she wiped a circle to face herself. "You've got this," she told her reflection. "It's just Simon. Simon who makes you laugh. Simon who listens when you talk. Simon who sees you." Choosing what to wear was an exercise in internal diplomacy. Too sexy seemed presumptuous, too casual seemed careless. Finally, she opted for a dark green midi dress that hugged her curves without being obvious, with a modest neckline and open back. Elegant but natural, hopeful but not desperate. She left her hair loose in natural waves, light makeup, just enough to enhance without masking. When she looked at herself in the mirror one last time, she saw someone she recognized but who seemed different. More confident, maybe, or just more open. The address Simon had sent took her to an elegant building in the most expensive district of the city. Of course he lived here. A uniformed doorman greeted her at the entrance, directing her to the elevators with a professional smile. "Penthouse," he said simply. Of course, penthouse. The elevator rose smoothly, each floor increasing the chill in her stomach. When it finally stopped and the doors opened, she found not a hallway, but a private entrance. There was only one door and it was slightly ajar. "Zara?" Simon's voice came from inside. "Come in, it's open." She pushed the door and stopped, holding her breath. The apartment was stunning. High ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the glittering city below. Minimalist but clearly expensive furniture. But what caught her attention wasn't the luxury. It was Simon. He was in the open kitchen, barefoot, wearing jeans and a simple grey t-shirt, hair slightly disheveled. There was something deeply intimate about seeing him like this, without shoes, without the armor of well-tailored clothes, just him in his personal space. "Hi," he said, wiping his hands on a dish towel before approaching. His eyes traveled over her slowly, appreciatively. "You look... wow. You too," she replied, and it was true. There was something incredibly attractive about him like this, relaxed, homey, real. He pulled her into a kiss that was part greeting, part promise. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Glad you came. I wouldn't miss this." Dinner was surprisingly delicious. Simon had made pasta from scratch, nothing fancy, just spaghetti with fresh tomato sauce, basil and garlic, but made with care. They ate at the kitchen table instead of the formal dining room, red wine between them, candles flickering softly. The conversation flowed easily as always, punctuated by laughter and looks that lasted a little longer than necessary. But there was an undercurrent now, an awareness of where the night might lead, making every accidental touch of hands feel loaded with meaning. "So you really do cook," Zara said, twirling more pasta on her fork. "Where did you learn?" "Claire. She decided when we were 19 that we needed at least one domestic skill. We spent an entire summer watching cooking shows and basically burning everything." He laughed at the memory. "But eventually I got the hang of it. It's calming in a way. Following a recipe, creating something with your hands." "You have so many layers," Zara observed. "Every time I think I have you figured out, you show me something new." "Good or bad?" "Good. Definitely good." After dinner, they moved to the living room, taking the wine with them. The view of the city at night was breathtaking, millions of lights twinkling like earthbound stars. They sat on the couch, closer than necessary, their bodies naturally gravitating toward each other. "Thank you for tonight," Zara said softly, "for letting me see this side of you." Simon turned to her, and there was something in his eyes that made her breath stop. "Zara, can I—" He didn't finish the question, but he didn't need to. She knew what he was asking, saw it in the way his hand hesitated near her face, in the tension in his shoulders, in the raw vulnerability in his expression. "Yes," she whispered. The permission broke something in him. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer until she was practically in his lap. The kiss that came was slow, gradually deepening, each touch of lips, a question and an answer. Her hands found his hair, pulling lightly in the way she'd learned he liked. He groaned against her mouth, the sound sending waves of heat through her. His fingers traced the curve of her exposed back, skin against skin, creating electricity. "Zara," he murmured against her lips, his voice rough. "If you want to stop, tell me now, because in a minute I won't be able to." In response, she moved completely into his lap, legs on either side of his, facing him directly. Her eyes met his, no hesitation, no doubt. "I don't want to stop." Something shifted in his eyes, control slipping, being replaced by raw desire. He stood smoothly, carrying her with ease, her legs wrapped around his waist. She laughed against his neck, kissing the line of his jaw as he led her down the hallway. The bedroom was as elegantly simple as the rest of the apartment. King-size bed with crisp white sheets, more floor-to-ceiling windows, soft lighting. But Zara barely registered the details. Her attention was entirely on the man who was lowering her gently onto the bed, following her down. "You're beautiful," he whispered, his hands tracing the outline of her face, as if memorizing every detail. "So incredibly beautiful." "Show me," she replied, echoing the words he'd said weeks ago at the restaurant. And he did, with touches that were alternately gentle and urgent, with kisses that explored every inch of exposed skin. Buttons were slowly undone, zippers lowered with reverent care. Each revelation of skin was accompanied by adoring touches, whispered words of appreciation. When there were finally no more barriers between them, they paused, just breathing, looking, marveling at the vulnerability of the moment. "Are you sure?" Simon asked one more time, even as his body betrayed how difficult it was to wait. "I've never been more sure of anything," Zara replied, pulling him closer. The union was slow, deliberate, both wanting to savor every sensation, every moment. It was intimate beyond the physical, a connection that touched something deeper. Skin against skin, breath against breath, hearts beating in sync. There was no rush, just exploration. Hands discovering what provoked gasps, lips finding sensitive spots, bodies learning each other's language. It was tender and passionate, vulnerable and powerful. When they finally reached climax together, it was with names whispered like prayers, fingers intertwined tightly, eyes locked on each other. Afterward, in the soft glow of the city through the windows, Simon pulled her into his arms, wrapping her completely. "Stay tonight," he said, not really a question. Zara snuggled against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I'll stay, because I want more than just tonight." His arms tightened around her. "How much more?" "Every night, every morning, everything." She felt his smile against her hair. "Then I guess we have a deal." And as they lay there wrapped up in each other, the world outside continued spinning. But inside that room, in that moment, only they existed. Two hearts that had found each other against all odds, ready to see where this journey would take them. Together. Zara woke up wrapped in soft sheets that smelled of expensive detergent and Simon's woody cologne. Morning light filtered through the sheer curtains, painting the room in golden tones. For a moment, she just lay there, absorbing the feeling of being in a completely new place, yet strangely familiar. Simon's arm was wrapped around her waist, pulling her against his chest. She could feel his steady breathing against her neck, the warmth of his body heating every inch of her skin. It was intimate in a way that went beyond the physical. It was waking up beside someone and feeling like you belonged there. "Are you awake?" His voice was rough with sleep, vibrating against her back. "I am," she whispered. He gently turned her to face him. His hair was completely messed up. There were pillow marks on his cheek, and his eyes were still heavy with sleep. She'd never seen him so disheveled. She'd never found him so beautiful. "Good morning," he murmured, kissing her forehead, then her nose, finally her lips, soft, lazy morning kisses. "Good morning." "Coffee?" he offered. "Please." They got up slowly, unhurried. Simon lent her one of his shirts, huge on her, falling to mid-thigh. When she came out of the bathroom, she found him in the kitchen already making coffee, wearing only pajama pants hanging low on his hips. The scene was so domestically perfect that Zara's heart squeezed. She approached from behind, wrapping her arms around his waist, resting her cheek against his back. "I could get used to this," she admitted. "Please do." He turned in her arms, pulling her closer. "I want you here every day, waking up like this, making coffee together, just being." Zara's phone rang from the purse she'd left in the living room. She ignored it, not wanting to break the moment. It rang again, and again. "Better answer it," Simon said gently. "It might be important." Reluctantly, Zara pulled away and grabbed her phone. 3 missed calls from Mia and a flood of messages from Sophie, all saying essentially the same thing. "Where are you? Are you okay? Call when you can." With a sigh, she called back. Mia answered on the first ring. "Finally, are you okay?" "I'm great," Zara said, aware of Simon listening from the kitchen. "Sorry, I should have let you know. I stayed at Simon's place." There was a significant pause. "Oh, his place? Like, stayed? Mia. Okay, I won't interrogate. But Sophie and I were worried. You never disappear like that." Guilt shot through Zara. She always told her friends where she was. It was an unspoken rule between them. Safety first. "Sorry for worrying you. I promise I'm fine, more than fine. See you later for details. See you at work Monday." When she hung up, she found Simon watching her with a thoughtful expression. "Your friends?" he asked. "They were worried. I always let them know where I am." "That's smart," he approached, handing her a steaming mug of coffee. "Good friends. The best." Zara took a sip, savoring the rich bitterness. "They just want to make sure I know what I'm getting into." "And do you?" The question was asked lightly, but there was weight behind it. Zara set the mug on the counter, turning to face him properly. "Honestly, sometimes it feels like a dream, like I'm going to wake up and find out none of this is real. This..." She gestured to the luxurious apartment around them. "This isn't my world, Simon." "It could be." "Could it?" She shook her head. "You live in a penthouse that probably costs more than I'll make in a lifetime. You drive a car that's worth more than my entire education. And I live in a tiny studio where the plumbing makes weird noises, and sometimes there are rats in the alley." Simon set his own mug aside, his hands finding her shoulders. "Zara, look at me." She obeyed, meeting those dark eyes, serious and intense. "I don't care where you live. I don't care that our worlds are different. What matters is this." He placed her hand over his heart. "What I feel when I'm with you. How you make me want to be better, do more, care about something beyond numbers in a bank account." "But people will talk," she said softly. "They'll say I'm with you for the money. They'll call me a gold digger, an opportunist." "Let them talk." His voice was firm. "I know the truth. You know the truth. That's what matters." "Is it?" In the following days, that question began to haunt her. Back at work on Monday, Zara faced a gentle but thorough interrogation from Mia and Sophie during their break. "So you're really doing this?" Sophie asked, stirring her coffee absently. "Like, seriously dating the billionaire?" "He's not a billionaire," Zara protested. "He's very financially successful." Mia snorted. "Honey, the man lives in a penthouse. He's at least a multimillionaire, and there's nothing wrong with that. We just want to make sure you know what you're getting into." "I'm in love with him," Zara admitted, the words coming out before she could censor them. "Completely, stupidly in love. And it terrifies me." Sophie reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Why?" "Because what if it doesn't work out? What if he realizes he can have someone better, more suited to his world? What if I'm just a phase? Or," Mia said gently, "what if this is real? What if he loves you as much as you love him? Are you going to let fear steal this from you?" Zara had no answer for that. That evening, Simon showed up at the cafe 10 minutes before closing. There were no other customers, and Mia discreetly disappeared to the back to do inventory. "Hi," he said, leaning against the counter like he had that first day. But now there was familiarity between them, an ease that came from knowing each other's bodies, thoughts, fears. "Hi yourself." Zara smiled, despite the weight she'd been carrying since the conversation with her friends. "You've been quiet," he observed. "Since Saturday, something wrong?" It was scary how well he could read her. "Just thinking. About us. This. Whether it really makes sense." His jaw tightened slightly. "It makes sense to me." "Simon, be realistic. Our worlds are completely different. You have meetings with CEOs and dinners with investors. I make coffee to pay rent and paint in my spare time. How does this work long term?" He came around the counter, something he technically wasn't supposed to do, but Zara didn't stop him. Until he stood in front of her, his hands on her waist. "It works because we make it work," he said firmly. "It works because I don't want those boring dinners without you by my side. It works because when I wake up, the first thing I think about is you. It works because for the first time in my life, I have something that matters more than business." Tears pricked her eyes. "What if I'm not enough?" "Zara." His voice broke on her name. "You're everything, don't you see that? You make me laugh, you make me think, you challenge me when I'm being an idiot. You make me want to be the man you deserve. You already are that man. Then stop doubting this. Stop doubting us." She wanted to believe. God, how she wanted to. But fear was a living thing in her chest, whispering all the ways this could go wrong. As if sensing her hesitation, Simon pulled her closer, holding her tight. "I want you here," he murmured against her hair. "Every day. Not as someone passing through, as someone who stays. Wake up with me, sleep with me, build a life with me. Let me show you this is real, that it won't disappear just because it's scary." Zara pulled back enough to look at him, seeing the raw vulnerability in his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly where they held her. "You're scared too," she realized. "Terrified," he admitted. "I've never felt like this before. Never let anyone get this close, and the idea of losing you, it destroys me. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you." The words broke something in her. The last resistance, the last wall. She reached up, framing his face, pulling him into a kiss that was part forgiveness, part promise. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "Okay. Okay. Okay. Let's make this work. Okay. I'll stop getting in my own head. Okay. I trust this. Us." The smile he gave her was blinding. "Okay." And as they stood there, in the empty cafe, the city darkening outside, something settled between them. Not all the answers, not all the certainties, but a commitment, a choice to try, to fight, to believe that sometimes love is enough to bridge the distance between two worlds. Sometimes all anyone needs is the courage to leap. And finally, they were both ready to fly. The following months were a revelation of what love could be when both people chose to show up, vulnerable and whole. Zara spent more time at Simon's penthouse, bringing pieces of herself, some canvases, favorite books, that faded college mug she refused to throw away. Simon cleared out a drawer for her, then another, then half the closet. "Eventually you'll just need to bring everything," he said one morning, watching her search for a hairbrush she was sure she'd brought. "I'm keeping my apartment," she replied, but without real conviction. He smiled, pulling her back to bed. For now, they created routines. Morning started with coffee that Simon made while Zara stole 5 more minutes under the covers. Evenings ended tangled on the couch, her painting on a tablet while he reviewed reports, bare feet touching, comfortable silences punctuated by stolen kisses. But not everything was perfect. There were moments when their worlds collided uncomfortably. Business dinners where Zara felt like an imposter among conversations about markets and acquisitions. Charity events where the looks were too long, the whispers not so subtle. Who is she? Where did she come from? What does he see in her? Simon always held her hand tighter in those moments, as if he could protect her from the silent judgments, but he couldn't, and they both knew it. "I don't care what they think," he'd say afterward when they were alone. "I know, but I do." Zara hated admitting it, but it was true. "I feel like I have to constantly prove something, that I'm not here for the money, that I really love you." "You don't need to prove anything to anyone, especially not to me." But the doubts persisted, small insidious voices that whispered in the quiet hours, "You don't belong here. This won't last. He'll realize eventually." It was on an ordinary Tuesday, 3 months after that first night together, that everything changed. Zara was at the cafe during the afternoon shift when Simon showed up. Not unusual, but he seemed different, nervous maybe, or excited. His eyes sparkled with something she couldn't name. "I need to show you something," he said without preamble. "Can you leave early?" Mia was already waving her away before Zara could answer. "Go. It's dead here anyway." Simon's car took them through the city to a neighborhood Zara knew well. the arts district where she'd spent countless hours wandering through galleries, dreaming of one day having her work hanging on those walls. "Why are we here?" she asked as he parked. "You'll see." He guided her down a side street until they stopped in front of a corner building. It had large glass windows in front, currently empty, but with that beautiful light that painters dreamed of. A "For Rent" sign was attached to the door. Was, until Simon ripped it off. "Simon, what did you do?" Zara whispered, her heart starting to race. He pulled a key from his pocket, opening the door. "Come in." The space was perfect. High ceilings with exposed beams, hardwood floors that told stories in every scratch, and that light. God, that light pouring through the windows in golden cascades. There was about 2,000 square feet of pure possibility. Zara spun slowly, taking in every detail, tears already burning her eyes. "Simon, I know you wanted to open your own gallery," he said, walking to stand in front of her. "I know you've been saving, planning, waiting for the right moment. But Zara, the right moment is now. You're too talented, too passionate to keep waiting." "I can't afford this," she said, even as her heart sang with possibilities. "You know I can't." "It's not a gift." His hands found her shoulders. "It's an investment. In you, in your talent, in your dream. Let me do this. Let me invest in the most incredible woman I know." "Simon, it's too much. I can't accept." "Why?" he interrupted her. "Because of pride? Because you're afraid of owing me?" "Zara, it doesn't work like that. When you love someone, you want to see them shine. You want to give them the tools to reach their dreams." "When you love someone," she repeated, the words hanging between them. His eyes softened. "Yes, when you love someone." The air left her lungs all at once. "Simon, I love you," he said, and there was so much certainty in those words that they swept any doubt from her heart. "I'm in love with you, with the way you see the world, with the way you challenge me, with the way you care so deeply about everything. You make me want to be better. You make me believe in things I thought were romantic nonsense." Tears were flowing freely down her face now. "You believe in me more than I believe in myself." "Because I see you." He wiped away her tears with his thumbs, his hands framing her face with such tenderness that more tears came. "I see your talent, your passion, everything you can become. And I want to be beside you while you become that. Not behind you, not in front of you, beside you." "I love you," Zara said, the words finally free. "God, Simon, I love you so much that sometimes I can barely breathe." The kiss he gave her was different from all the others. It was celebration and promise, relief and pure joy. They kissed right there, in the middle of the empty gallery, the afternoon light bathing them in gold. When they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling through tears. "So you'll accept?" he asked. "Let me invest in you?" "On one condition," Zara said, her mind already racing with possibilities. "This is a business loan, proper and legal, with interest and a payment schedule. I'm going to pay you back every penny." He laughed. "You're impossible." "You love me." "I do." He kissed her again, quick and sweet. "Okay, business loan. My lawyer will draw up the documents." "But Zara?" "Yes?" "When this takes off, and it will, I want to be at the opening. I want to see your face when people discover how talented you are. I want to celebrate every victory with you." "Every victory," she agreed. "And every challenge, every difficult moment, everything." They spent the next hour wandering the space, Zara pointing out where she'd put the display walls, where the reception would be, how she'd arrange the lighting. Simon took notes on his phone, already mentally calculating budgets and timelines. "How long do you think it'll take to open?" he asked. 3 months, maybe? It needs renovations. I need to curate work, do marketing." She paused, the enormity of it all suddenly hitting her. This is really happening. It's happening. He pulled her against him, arms wrapping around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder as they both looked at the empty space that would soon be hers. "And you're going to be amazing." When they locked up and left, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. They stood on the sidewalk for a moment, hands intertwined, absorbing the weight of everything that had changed that day. "Thank you," Zara said softly. Not just for the space, but for believing in me, for seeing me. Always, Simon promised. In every version of you, in every dream, in every fear, I see you, Zara. And I'm not going anywhere. Neither am I. They kissed there on the street, not caring who saw, not caring about anything beyond that moment, that promise, that love that had grown from a careless joke into something real and solid and lasting. Back at the penthouse that night, tangled in bed after making love with a tenderness that left them both trembling, Simon traced lazy patterns on Zara's back. "You know what I realized?" he murmured in the dark. "What? You saved me. From that empty life of just work and appearances. You gave me something to live for beyond numbers and transactions." Zara pulled back enough to look at him. "You saved me too. You gave me courage to dream bigger, to believe I deserve more. We saved each other," he corrected, kissing her forehead. "Together, together," she agreed, snuggling back against him. And as sleep took them, wrapped up in each other, the future for the first time seemed not scary, but exciting. Because when you have someone who believes in you as much as you believe in them, anything seems possible, even the wildest dreams. The following months were a beautiful whirlwind of hard work and pure joy. Zara split her time between the cafe, where Mia insisted she keep a few shifts so you don't forget where you came from, and transforming that empty space into her vision. Simon was there whenever he could be, sometimes just sitting in the corner with his laptop, working quietly while she painted or organized. "You don't have to be here every time," she said one evening, paint smudges on her cheeks, hair pulled into a messy bun. "I know." He looked up from the screen. That soft smile she'd learned meant pure contentment. "But I like watching you work. You get completely lost in it. It's beautiful." The gallery took shape slowly. Walls were painted a creamy white that made the colors of the paintings pop. Track lighting was installed with surgical precision. The hardwood floor was restored until it gleamed. Zara curated pieces, not just hers, but from other local artists she admired, giving them a platform that they, like her, had never had. Claire, Simon's sister, became a frequent visitor, offering advice on networking and public relations. "You have talent," she told Zara during one of those visits, "but talent alone isn't enough. You need to make the right people pay attention. And how do I do that?" With an opening that no one will forget. They planned for weeks. Invitations were sent to collectors, critics, influencers from the art world. Catering was arranged, a string quartet hired for live music. Every detail was considered, every possibility planned for. "I'm terrified," Zara admitted to Simon the night before the opening. They were lying in bed, too tired to sleep, nerves humming under their skin. "You're going to be amazing," he said, pulling her closer. "Tomorrow, the world is going to see what I've always known, that you're extraordinary. What if no one shows up? What if they do and hate everything? Then they're idiots." He kissed the top of her head. "But they won't hate it. They'll love it. Because your work speaks, Zara. It touches people." The night of the opening arrived with a mix of terror and euphoria. Zara wore a simple but elegant black dress, nothing that would compete with the art on the walls. Simon looked impeccable in a dark suit, a steady hand on her back as they prepared to open the doors. "Breathe," he whispered, as the first group of guests approached. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." The first hours were a blur. People came in, more than Zara had dared hope for. They circulated, studied, commented. Critics took notes. Collectors asked about prices. And slowly, gloriously, red sold tags began appearing next to pieces. "Zara!" An elegant woman in her 50s approached, wine glass in hand. "This portrait series, they're devastating. The way you capture vulnerability but also strength, it's remarkable." "Thank you," Zara managed to say, her heart swelling. "That means so much. I hope to see more of your work. You have my card." The woman pressed a gold card into her hand before drifting away. Simon materialized beside her, pride radiating from his face. "See? I told you." "You did," she agreed, finally allowing herself to believe. As the night progressed, terror gave way to something that felt dangerously like triumph. She'd done it. Not just opened a gallery, but created something meaningful, something that mattered. When the last guests finally left around midnight, Zara collapsed into one of the chairs they'd scattered around the space. Her feet ached, her jaw was sore from smiling, and she was exhausted in a way that went to the bone. Simon locked the door and came back, kneeling in front of her to gently remove her heels. "Thank you," she sighed as he massaged her sore feet. "It was an incredible night," he said, looking up at her with that expression that always made her feel seen to her soul. "You were incredible. We did this," she corrected. "Together." He paused, his hands still holding her feet, something shifting in his expression. "Zara, wait here, just a second." Before she could ask why, he stood and walked to the corner of the gallery where one piece still remained covered, something she'd noticed earlier, but assumed was part of some artist's display. "What is that?" she asked. "Something I've been waiting for the right moment to show you." He pulled off the fabric, revealing an abstract painting, swirls of blue and gold intertwined, chaos and order dancing together. Zara stood, moving closer. It was beautiful, but there was something more, something familiar in the way the colors interacted, in the way they told a story of two opposing forces finding harmony. "It's us," she whispered, realizing. "Isn't it? Our journey," Simon confirmed. "From the moment you made that joke at the cafe until now. Chaos and control, art and business, two worlds colliding and creating something new." Tears pricked her eyes, not from sadness, but from something much bigger. "Simon, this is... Wait." He took her hand, guiding her to stand in front of the painting. "There's more." Only then did she notice, hidden in the golden swirls, painted so subtly it had almost gone unnoticed, there were words. She had to lean closer to read them. "Marry me." The world stopped. Zara turned and Simon was there, no longer in front of the painting but on the floor. On his knees, a small velvet box in his open hand. "Zara," his voice was thick with emotion, "you've proven to me that love doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be true. You've shown me that strength comes from vulnerability, that courage is choosing to show up even when you're scared." He opened the box, revealing a simple but stunning ring. A solitaire stone in white gold, elegant without being ostentatious. "You're my best friend, my partner, my favorite challenge. You make me want to wake up early and stay up late. You make me laugh when I'm stressed and keep me grounded when life gets crazy." Tears were flowing freely down her face now, and she made no effort to stop them. "I can't promise it will always be easy. Our worlds will still collide sometimes. We'll fight about stupid things and disagree on important decisions. But I can promise I'll love you through all of it. I'll support you, challenge you, see you, really see you, every day for the rest of my life." His voice broke on the next part. "So will you marry me? Let me be the person who brings you coffee in the morning and holds you at night. Let me build a life with you, a family, a future. Marry me, Zara." "Yes." The word came out in a sob. "Yes, always yes. 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger with hands that trembled slightly, then stood, pulling her into a kiss that was salt and sweet, tears and laughter, promise and celebration all at once. When they finally pulled apart, they were both crying, smiling, holding each other as if letting go was impossible. "I love you," she said against his lips. "So much. So much. I love you." He lifted her, spinning her as she laughed. "My amazing artist, my future wife." They kissed again there, surrounded by paintings that told their own stories, under the soft light of the gallery that was hers, theirs. A space built on dreams and mutual support, on believing in each other even when it was scary. "When did you plan this?" Zara asked when she could finally form coherent thoughts. "Weeks ago. I commissioned the painting from an artist Claire knows. I wanted it to be perfect, for it to be us." "It is us," she agreed, looking at the abstract canvas that somehow captured everything they were. Different but complementary, strong separately but stronger together. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful." He framed her face, wiping away the last tears. "Inside and out, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." They stayed at the gallery until the early morning hours, curled up on the small office couch, planning futures and laughing at memories. They talked about weddings, something small and intimate, just people who really mattered, about the gallery and how to grow it, about whether maybe eventually they wanted children. "I want everything with you," Simon said, as the first light of dawn began filtering through the windows. "Every mundane moment, every big adventure, lazy mornings and late nights, arguments about the remote and decisions about where to live, just everything." "Everything," Zara agreed, the ring heavy and perfect on her finger. "I promise." And as they kissed under the dawning light, surrounded by art and promises, they both knew they'd found something rare. Not just love, but partnership. Not just passion, but purpose. Two people who'd met by chance and chosen repeatedly to stay, chosen to build something beautiful together, chosen love. 6 months after the proposal, on a quiet spring morning, Zara woke in a space that finally completely felt like hers. No longer the tiny apartment with noisy plumbing, nor just Simon's penthouse, but a home they'd created together, a spacious loft in the arts district, close enough to the gallery for her to walk there with huge windows that poured light into every corner. She'd officially moved in 3 months ago, bringing her paint-stained canvases, her dog-eared books, that ugly college mug. Simon didn't just make space, he celebrated each addition, each touch of hers that transformed the house into a home. Now, lying in the king-size bed they'd chosen together, she watched the white curtains dance in the breeze from the open window. She could hear Simon in the kitchen, the clink of mugs, the rich aroma of coffee beginning to permeate the air. "Are you awake?" his voice carried from the other room. "I am," she called back, stretching lazily. He appeared in the doorway moments later, 2 mugs in hand, wearing only pajama pants, and that soft, sleepy smile she loved. Messy hair, unshaven, completely hers. "Good morning, future Mrs. Chen," he said, handing her a mug. "Still considering keeping my last name," she teased, taking a sip. Perfect, as always. The right amount of milk, not too hot. "Considering is progress." He joined her in bed, pulling her against his chest. "You know I don't care what name you choose, right? I only care that you're mine." "Always," she promised, turning to kiss him. The taste of coffee and toothpaste, familiar and perfect. Life had settled into a rhythm that felt both exciting and comfortable. The gallery was thriving, not just financially, but as a true artistic hub in the community. Zara had managed to pay back Simon's loan 6 months ahead of schedule, something that made him laugh and kiss her, until she forgot why she thought it would prove anything. "Always so stubborn," he'd said, pride shining in his eyes. "That's why you love me. One of many reasons." Now she still worked occasional shifts at Brew and Soul, not because she needed the money, but because she liked staying grounded, maintaining connection to who she was before. Mia was still there, and Sophie still visited during breaks, and those moments of normalcy kept Zara anchored even as her life changed in ways she'd never imagined. Simon had adjusted his own schedule too. Fewer unnecessary business trips, more time working from home. He showed up to every exhibition opening at the gallery, every event, not as a silent patron, but as a proud partner. "You don't have to come to all of them," she'd said once. "I know," he replied, kissing her temple. "But I want to. I want to see your face when someone connects with a piece. I want to be there when you triumph." They'd found balance, not perfect, because perfect didn't exist, but real. There were occasional arguments, of course, about how much time he spent working, about how she sometimes shut down when she was stressed, but they'd learned to communicate, to push through the discomfort until they reached understanding on the other side. "Wedding in 3 weeks," Simon said now, fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified, excited, everything at once." Zara paused, then added honestly, "Mostly happy. Really, absurdly happy." "Me too." He pulled her closer. "Claire asked me yesterday if I'm nervous." "And are you?" "Not even a little. Only nervousness I have is that something might keep you from showing up." She pulled back enough to look at him properly. "Simon Chen, you're stuck with me. I'd be there even if I had to crawl." "We'd prefer you didn't crawl. The photos wouldn't look as good." She swatted his chest lightly, laughing. "Idiot." You're idiot. The wedding would be small, just 50 people, the most important in their lives. Claire as Simon's best woman, Sophie and Mia as Zara's bridesmaids. A simple ceremony at a botanical garden, followed by an intimate dinner at a restaurant they both loved. No fuss, Zara had insisted during planning. Just love, Simon agreed. Later that morning, after a lazy breakfast of pancakes that Simon made while Zara read art news on her tablet, they got ready for the day. Simon had meetings, he always had meetings, but promised to be home for dinner. "What do you want to eat?" he asked, adjusting his tie in the mirror. "You choose." Zara came up behind him, fixing the collar he always managed to get slightly crooked. "Surprise me." "Dangerous, giving me free rein like that." "I trust you." Simple words, but loaded with truth. She trusted him, with her dreams, her fears, her heart. He turned in her arms, kissing her deeply. "I love you. I love you too. Now go. You're going to be late. Worth it." But he went anyway, throwing that smile over his shoulder that still made her shiver even after a year together. Zara spent the day at the gallery, preparing for a new exhibition opening next month. A young photographer whose work had moved her to tears, raw, honest images of urban life that captured humanity in the most mundane moments. "You have a real eye for this," Claire said, visiting at lunch. "The gallery's become one of the most respected spaces in the city in less than a year. It's impressive." "I had help," Zara reminded her. "You had a boost. The rest was all you. Your talent, your vision, your hard work." Claire paused, then added softly, "I'm glad you came into my brother's life. He was successful before, but he wasn't happy. Now he's both." The words stayed with Zara for the rest of the day, warming her from the inside out. She'd spent so much time worrying if she'd be enough, if she'd belong in his world. But the truth was simpler. They'd created their own world, one that incorporated parts of both of them. When she finally locked up the gallery and headed home at dusk, she found Simon on the loft's terrace, lighting candles on the small table they'd placed there. The city stretched out below them, lights beginning to twinkle as night fell. "Surprise," he said, gesturing to the scene. "Tie?" "Your favorite." Her heart melted. "You're perfect." "Far from it, but I try." They ate dinner as the sky changed from blue to indigo to velvety black dotted with stars. They talked about everything and nothing. His day, hers, plans for the honeymoon, still undecided between Paris and Kyoto, whether they should adopt a cat. "Cat definitely," Zara argued. "Dog needs too much time." "Cat then." "But I get to pick the name." "Absolutely not. Your names are terrible." "A dog named Investor would be great." "See? Terrible." They laughed, easy and free. The kind of laughter that came from knowing someone so completely. There were no more masks. After dinner, they danced on the terrace without music, just the distant sound of traffic and the occasional beat of each other's hearts. Simon held her close, chin resting on top of her head, and Zara closed her eyes, memorizing the moment. His smell, his warmth, the absolute safety of his arms. "Remember when you said rich men don't know how to please a woman?" he murmured. She laughed against his chest. "Oh my God, that feels like a lifetime ago." "Remember what I said. You asked if I was sure. And now?" He pulled back just enough to look at her. "Are you still sure?" Zara reached up, framing his face, thumb tracing the arch of his eyebrow, the line of his jaw. "I was wrong. Thank God I was wrong." "You weren't wrong." His voice was serious. "You were right about a lot of men, but you gave me a reason to be different, to be better." "We made each other better," she corrected. "Together." "Together," he agreed, leaning in to kiss her. The kiss deepened naturally, hands wandering familiar paths, breaths quickening. Simon lifted her effortlessly, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her inside. The terrace door kicked shut behind them. They made love slowly, tenderly, with the familiarity of partners who knew every preference, every sensitive spot, but also with the excitement that had never really faded. Afterward, curled under cool sheets, bodies still intertwined, they whispered plans and promises in the dark. 3 weeks until we're officially married," Zara said, fingers tracing patterns on his chest. 3 weeks until I can finally stop calling you my fiancée and start calling you my wife. You like that title, don't you? I love that title. He kissed the top of her head. My wife, mother of my future children, life partner. Yeah, I like it a lot. Future children. She propped herself up on her elbow to look at him. Are we talking numbers now? 2, he said immediately. Maybe 3. Enough that they're not lonely. Not so many we go insane. Practical as always. Someone has to be. They fell silent for a moment, just enjoying the closeness, the pure contentment of being like this, unguarded, loved, home. Simon, Zara said softly. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For challenging me. For making that stupid joke seem like the best mistake I ever made. He laughed, the sound vibrating through his chest to hers. It wasn't a mistake. It was fate disguised as an accident. You believe in fate now? I believe in us. He pulled her closer, if possible. I believe some people were made to find each other. And I believe that no matter how many lives I lived, I'd always find you. Tears pricked her eyes. Happy tears this time. The kind that came from joy so deep it overflowed. I love you, she whispered. I love you, Zara, always. And as sleep took them, intertwined and complete, the city continued its life outside the windows. People laughed and cried, found and lost, lived their own stories. But here, in this space, they'd made theirs. Only this mattered. 2 hearts that had found each other against all odds. 2 worlds that had collided and created something beautiful. A joke in a cafe had changed everything. It had brought a billionaire to his knees and a dreaming artist to the realization of her dreams. It had proven that love knows no boundaries of class or wealth, that true connection transcends all superficial differences. And as they slept, Zara's engagement ring caught the moonlight, glinting softly, a symbol of promises made and kept, of futures built together, of love that was both fuel and anchor. Because in the end, it didn't matter where they came from. It only mattered where they were going. And they were going together. Always. In the end, Zara and Simon's story wasn't about wealth or class differences. It was about 2 souls who refused to let fear win. It was about vulnerability transformed into strength, about walls torn down brick by brick until only truth remained. They proved that true love doesn't require us to be perfect, just to be real. That sometimes the best stories begin with the most unlikely words, with encounters that seem like coincidences, but feel like destiny. And that when we find someone who sees us, really sees us, in all our imperfect, beautiful mess, everything changes. Because in the end, we don't need worlds that fit together perfectly. We just need hearts willing to build bridges. And you? Are you willing to tear down your own walls and believe that love can find you in the most unexpected places? If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and become a member to get early access to upcoming stories. And if you felt it was really worth listening to, click the super thanks button too. Your support makes all the difference and helps us keep bringing stories that move you.